Learning a complex new skill often feels incredibly slow, but the delay rarely comes from the difficulty of the material itself. The friction happens because your brain is already anchored to old habits, and breaking the hold of those deeply ingrained routines requires active unlearning. This diagram of the human brain shows the two regions caught in a biological tug-of-war when you try to change your behavior. At the front is the prefrontal cortex, which handles conscious problem-solving and critical thinking. Deep in the center is the basal ganglia, the area responsible for executing your automatic habits. The basal ganglia runs those old habits on very low energy, making them fast and highly efficient. In contrast, your prefrontal cortex burns massive amounts of energy trying to force new behaviors. When you try to police an old habit using just focus, your prefrontal cortex fatigues rapidly, leaving the basal ganglia to take over and revert you right back to your old ways. To bypass this energy trap, you need to systematize the unlearning process. Grab a piece of paper or open a digital document and divide it into 5 distinct sections. This will be your unlearning action plan. Relying on raw willpower to overwrite years of neural wiring often leads to fatigue and regression. By using a pre-planned system, you offload the heavy cognitive work from your prefrontal cortex, creating a more sustainable path to mastery. Section 1 of your plan is dedicated to cutting the psychological reward of the bad habit, a process known as extinction. Old habits stick around because they feel comfortable. Your brain interprets surface-level ease, like moving quickly through a task, as meaningful progress. This creates a dopamine loop that reinforces the exact behavior you want to drop. Look at this split breakdown of productivity metrics. On the left are false metrics, like counting pages read or notes copied. These feel productive, but yield poor retention. On the right are true indicators of mastery, like successfully solving complex problems or creating analogies from memory. By actively rejecting those false metrics and refusing to feel satisfied by them, you stop feeding the loop. When the old habit stops providing a dopamine hit, the behavior begins to extinguish. Now move to Section 2, isolating the trigger. You need to know exactly when this unwanted behavior launches. Do not log broad complaints like, "I get distracted easily," or "I take bad notes." You must identify the microscopic catalyst that kicks off the sequence. For example, the exact trigger might be the moment you face a dense, overwhelming block of text. The immediate, habitual action that follows is passively highlighting sentences just to feel like you were doing something. Without starving the old reward system and pinpointing that exact starting cue, your brain will continually default to its lowest energy, most comfortable pathway the second you face a challenge. Step 3 is creating your pattern interrupt. You are going to write a script that acts as artificial willpower. By pre-programming a specific response, your prefrontal cortex doesn't have to spend precious energy deciding what to do. It already has the instructions. The first formula is a direct substitution. Write down, if my specific trigger happens, then I will execute this specific new action. For reading, it might be, if I encounter a dense passage, then I will pause and write a 1-sentence summary. The alternative formula builds a hard biological boundary. Write down, if my trigger happens, I will never do my old action. For example, if I am learning something new, I will never start by highlighting. Step 4 is putting that script to work by designing a constraint drill. You cannot wait for the trigger to naturally appear 2 hours into a long work session. By then, your cognitive fatigue will be too high to fight the habit effectively. Instead, construct a highly compressed 5-minute artificial scenario where your trigger is guaranteed to happen. If dense text is your trigger, ask an AI to generate a highly complex technical explanation, read it, and practice executing your script immediately. These short, focused constraint drills bypass your brain's fatigue limits. They allow you to systematically dismantle the old habit in manageable fractions without exhausting your capacity to think. Finally, Step 5 is setting the reflection loop. Once your 5-minute drill is over, you need to analyze the results. First, answer this question: how did the old habit try to reassert itself today? Logging exactly how and when you slipped up trains your brain's pattern recognition centers. This makes it much easier to spot the warning signs and interrupt the sequence earlier during your next session. Next, ask yourself, what specific friction was removed or what clarity was gained by using the new method. This flowchart illustrates why this works biologically. By explicitly acknowledging the improvement, like realizing your thoughts are finally organized, you manually trigger a dopamine release. That chemical signal connects the new action to a positive outcome, which physically cements the new habit. This act of reflection serves as the biological trigger that shifts the new neural pathway into the basal ganglia for permanent storage. You've moved from relying on vague desires to improve into possessing a clinical, neuroscience-backed roadmap for skill acquisition. Your document now outlines a cohesive system, redefining rewards, isolating triggers, scripting responses, drilling the constraints, and reflecting on the outcomes. Do not wait for your next major deadline or massive project to test this out. Set a timer for 5 minutes and execute your constraint drill right now. It is the first practical step toward rewiring your brain and acquiring top-tier skills.